Barnstable police responded to 3 opiate-related overdoses over the weekend. We talk with Police Chief Paul McDonald about the epidemic that is plaguing our community. And town officials want to take a good look at the town's recreation fields in an effort to plan for the future. Plus, despite all the snow this winter, projects to update 2 town boat ramps are nearing completion. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannell. Town officials hope a new long-term needs assessment of recreation fields in town will help them plan for the future. Department of Public Works Assistant Director Rob Steen says it's important to think about how residents will use these fields for years to come.
You know, we basically said, look, if we were to do this, and it's not our bailiwick to tell you how to do this, we would do a more comprehensive look to sort of say strategically, what does the town want to accomplish with its fields? What are their needs now and 20 years into the future? How do those marry up with existing facilities? How do those marry up with potential future facilities? And then generally form all that into a plan that then feeds the CIP and CPC process, so that going forward there's sort of a guidance document that says, look, fields should be here, 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 here. It should be to these levels of professionalism. We need, based on population demographics, these kinds of fields in the future, those kinds of things. When you start looking into this stuff a little bit, and I've done a little bit of that, you can see that it's interesting how some communities are starting to position for future needs. So they'll say, look, you know, when people my age were children, you know, when we did sports, it was effectively Little League baseball, and that was our option. So we all played baseball, did a lot of it. When I look at my 12-year-old now and my kids younger than 12-year-old, they don't play baseball. They do soccer and lacrosse and all sorts of other things all the time. Well, when those kids become the adults of the future in town, are they going to have the same need for baseball fields that we currently have, or are they going to have a need for all-purpose fields or whatever? So the point of the study was to say, let's look at, or we would propose you would look at sort of a general needs assessment, a general assessment of what you have, and then marry that up against each other and say, okay, what could we potentially need going forward?
Town officials will now begin the process of requesting funds through the Community Preservation Commission to conduct the needs assessment. Projects to update 2 town boat ramps are nearing completion. Both the McCarthy boat ramp in Centerville and the Prince Cove ramp in Marston's Mills are getting updates. Department of Public Works Director Dan Santos describes the renovations.
What these projects involve is reconstructing the ramp because that's the marine environment is a very harsh environment oftentimes, and so structures really take a beating there. And what these primarily consist of are large concrete slabs that are, buried in the sea bottom, and that can take the weight of a trailer and a boat and allow safe access to the water. The difficulty in these, well, there's a couple of difficulties. One is the permitting aspect. Is anytime we're working in and around the water, conservation issues, shellfish issues. We have fish and wildlife concerned about winter flounder that come in the area. So we only have a certain window in which we can work. And then if we're outside of that window, we actually have to put up fencing in the water so the fish can't get to where we're working. The other difficult aspect of these projects is you can't just pour concrete in the water or when the tide's low. So we actually have to put in what's called a cofferdam, which basically is a wall we build with metal sheet piling. We pound into the subsurface and pump the water out, and we de-water where we're going to be constructing and do our construction in a dry environment. Then they pull out the sheet piling, and the water can flood back in, and things go back to normal. So it's very time and cost and weather prohibitive.
Santos says both ramp projects will be completed by the summer season. Barnstable police arrested 5 individuals on drug-related charges over the weekend and responded to 3 opiate-related overdoses. Barnstable This Morning host Sarah Colvin talked to Police Chief Paul McDonald about the opiate epidemic. in our community. We share a portion of that interview with you now.
So, Chief, of course, we heard more news this weekend about things relating to opiates and heroin. Wanted to start with the overdoses. It seems like 3 people, was it in one house in Hyannis, overdosed over the weekend?
Three individuals living in an apartment on Oak Neck Road Saturday afternoon. All 3 of them OD'd. Rescue was called. We responded. Rescue was able to revive all 3 individuals with use of Narcan. 2 of the individuals are doing well. The 3rd individual is still in the hospital, and she is in critical condition at this time. So there is a concern for us. However, we do have a team of detectives working on it. This is a little unique situation for us because we have 3 individuals that overdosed, and they all used the same bag of heroin. So now we are conducting a very active investigation to find out where exactly these narcotics came from and try to backtrack the entire trail.
Exactly, and so very important as we've seen the really just massive amount of overdoses that have occurred, and it's perhaps due to that, super powerful heroin. Perhaps it's laced with fentanyl. So I mean, I guess it's good for the investigation that all 3 of these were in the same place and came from the same source. So as you say, you can kind of go back and trace it.
Well, it gives us the ability to go back there because now we do have 2 other individuals. They used the exact same heroin. It was not a huge quantity of heroin, but we do believe it was cut with fentanyl, and fentanyl seems to be the common denominator in a lot of these drug overdoses. That and the inexperience of some of these users who were used to using the pill form of the opiate, where if you buy a pill, it's a 30 milligram Oxycontin. You know exactly what you're getting. When you get the heroin, you really have no idea what you're getting. If you're getting it from some individual who's out of Providence, New Bedford, or whatever, who packaged it, and you really have no idea what you're getting. So these inexperience, coupled with it being laced with fentanyl, is a huge problem.
Is there any leads, Chief, on where this fentanyl-laced heroin is coming from? Is it something that's originating from here on the Cape, or is it something that's coming from one of the channels off Cape?
It's coming. We know it's definitely coming from off Cape. Most is coming through Providence, Rhode Island. We have backtracked it. We know who their supplier is here in the Cape Cod region, so we have a very active investigation going on with that individual. And depending on what happens with these individuals, there could be multiple charges coming from this.
Exactly. And speaking of arrests, there were some made over the weekend, not in connection perhaps with this incident, but again, in dealing with heroin.
Well, because of what's going on, we certainly turned up the enforcement part of it. I mean, that's our job, the enforcement part of this, and they're out in full force, the narcotics division along the street crime unit, and they made 5 different arrests within a 6-hour period. All of these individuals are frequent flyers, all well known to us, all been in jail 2 or 3 different times.
And the police department is not the only group taking notice of the heroin epidemic. The Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills Fire Department is also taking action. The department, along with the AIDS support group of Cape Cod, will hold an opiate overdose awareness class at COM headquarters on Route 28 in Centerville on Wednesday. The event will provide training on how to recognize an opiate overdose, how to open and maintain a person's airway, and how to administer nasal Narcan. The public is invited to attend. The event begins at 6 tomorrow night at COM headquarters on Route 28 in Centerville. Now let's get a look at sports with Brenna McCoubry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brenna McCoubry, here to keep you up to date on National and Red Raiders sports. The Boston Bruins will take on the Florida Panthers tonight at 7. They'll be home at TD Garden. The Boston Celtics will have their turn in the Garden tomorrow night at 7:30 as they take on the Golden State Warriors. Closing in on what's happening here in Barnstable, our favorite Red Raiders hockey teams continue their journey in the postseason. The girls' varsity team will travel to Stoneham Arena to face Acton Boxborough tonight at 7. This has been the furthest the girls have made it into the state tournament since the state championship title in 2007. As for the boys' varsity hockey team, they will play tomorrow night at Gallo Ice Arena against Norwood. Puck drops for the boys at 7:30. Spring sports sign-ups for BHS will be held tonight in the main cafeteria at 6 p.m. Sports offered include softball, baseball, boys volleyball, boys and girls track, tennis, and lacrosse, as well as co-ed sailing. Trials will be held Monday, March 17th. Here to keep you up to date on National and Red Raiders sports, I'm Brenna McCoubry.
For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannell.